Welcome to Storytimer at Large. Terry Lee Chasteen. Terry Lee Chasteen worked as a checker at a Westside Indianapolis supermarket. She was divorced and had 3 little children, 5-year-old girl, Misty Ann, and 2 younger boys, Stephen Michael, who was 4, and 3-year-old Mark Lewis. She was on her way to drop them off at the babysitter so she could head to work. It was a typical day for this busy young mother. She was driving on I-465, the interstate loop that encircles Indianapolis, on Friday, April 27, 1979, when a young blonde construction worker in a utility truck signaled for her to pull over. Fearing that something was wrong with her car, she pulled over. Stephen Timothy Judy approached her car and told her that one of the wheels was wobbling and seemed as if it was about to fall off. He feigned trying to work on her car, and for some strange reason he popped the hood and disconnected a wire so that the car wouldn't start. It has nothing to do with the wheel wobbling, but he convinced her that he would give her and the children a ride to a phone and to get a part for the car. He also may have forced her into going with him in the truck. Once in the truck, she seems to have tried to signal for help. One driver in another car said she waved at him, and that that wave seemed to make Stephen Timothy Judy agitated. The witness thought that they were a couple and that he shouldn't get involved. I imagine that she realized just how vulnerable she was with her kids in this truck. She desperately wanted to protect her children. She desperately wanted to protect herself, too. She had to figure out how to deal with this increasingly dangerous situation. Humans have 4 responses to extreme danger: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. We used to only hear about the first 2, fight or flight. You either fight or you run. But all 4 might be ways to save yourself depending on the situation. Fight is self-explanatory. You fight back and defend yourself. If Terry Lee had fought back or launched an offensive first in the truck, her children might have been hurt. Most mothers would rather die than see their children hurt. Flight was also not an option. She was a devoted mother and would never leave her children. She also couldn't jump out of a truck speeding on 465, holding on to all 3 of her children. Freezing was a safe option. It would maybe keep the kids calm and quiet, and keep Steve and Judy calm and quiet. So she likely stayed still and silent. Fawning may also have been an option. Being kind and sympathetic to a violent perpetrator can sometimes work. With her children present, Terry Lee Chasteen likely tried to be as accommodating as possible. I'm sure that when she realized they were not going to a phone or a gas station, but instead heading south and out of town, her fear was extremely elevated. Near Mooresville, Indiana, Steve and Timothy Judy had them all get out of the truck and walk down a path toward a creek. The children ran along first down the path, unaware that they were all in danger. Steve and Judy then violently raped Terry Lee Chasteen. He strangled her. When the children came back down the path and began screaming and crying when they saw what was happening to their mother, Steve and Timothy Judy threw each child into the creek, where it appeared to be about 7 feet deep. It was April. The water was cold. The high temperature that day was only 49 and the low was 39. The water would have been just above freezing. None of them could swim. All 3 were drowning as he threw their deceased mother to the creek as well and left. He attempted to erase his footprints in the soil with a branch. In a later interview, Stephen would say that he enjoyed the criminal acts he committed. He said that doing these things would bring him out of his bouts of depression. April is mushroom hunting season in Indiana. The next day was a Saturday, and mushroom hunters were venturing out to the creeks and wooded places searching for morels. A group searching for mushrooms found Terry Lee and her children, and they contacted the police. Investigators initially looked at Terry Lee's boyfriend and her ex-husband, but both of them had alibis. Her ex-husband was actually thousands of miles away in the Navy. Abduction by a stranger was not at the top of their list, the investigators. Most murder victims are killed by someone they know. Most murdered women are killed by their romantic partner. In her lifetime, a woman is statistically more likely to be murdered by a partner when she is pregnant or when she is leaving a relationship. Abduction and murder by a stranger has a much lower probability, but that probability is not zero. As the story came out in the news, people called in with tips. Some had even noticed Terry Lee Chasteen and Stephen Timothy Judy on the side of the road. They described his truck with its utility toolboxes on the sides of the bed. It was distinctive. It was used and a little beat up and had no company logos, so it stood out. Police were talking to Stephen Timothy Judy the very next day. He had been out on bail only 1 week for an armed robbery charge in Indiana. He was also an Illinois state parolee at the time. He had grown up in an extremely violent household and was an aggressive child. At 10 years old, he would push high school girls down and try to molest them. He had been in and out of trouble with the law since he was 12. What was his crime at 12 years old? In 1968, Stephen Timothy Judy pretended to be a Boy Scout and conned his way into a woman's home. He was found guilty of beating and raping her and then bludgeoning her with a hatchet, causing skull fractures. As he was swinging the axe, she was trying to protect her head, and this resulted in Stephen Timothy Judy cutting off one of her fingers. The attack was labeled as aggravated battery, not attempted murder, by prosecutors. They didn't consider this anything more than aggravated battery. Remember, rape was not considered a serious or violent crime at the time by the all-male lawmakers who decided things for all of us. Stephen Timothy Judy was sentenced to 6 months in a juvenile detention center and then transferred to a mental hospital. He was diagnosed as a sexual psychopath. In 1972, he was released to a foster family. The state told his foster family nothing about his violent background. When he was arrested for the Chasteen murders, investigators saw similarities to Ann Harmeyer's case. The two crimes were fairly similar. Both were taken from the side of the road. Both were raped and strangled. The killer simply discarded them and did not take the time or effort to hide or bury the bodies, and both were left in Morgan County. Upon checking, though, Stephen Judy was supposed to be incarcerated on the day of Ann Harmeyer's abduction. At his trial for the 4 Chasteen murders, Stephen Judy pled guilty and threatened the jury. He said that he wanted the death penalty. He got what he wanted. On March 9, 1981, Stephen Judy died in the electric chair at Michigan City, Indiana. He was 24 years old. But are there other victims of Stephen Timothy Judy? Does someone commit a violent rape and murder in 1968 and another in 1979, but nothing in between? He was free from 1972 to 1979. Before his execution, he met with his foster family in the last days. He confessed to his foster mother to many armed robberies, rapes, and murders. He had lived in New Orleans, Louisiana for a short time in 1973 and claimed to have killed 2 women there, but did not name them. He confessed to the kidnapping and rape of another Louisiana woman and claimed to have thrown her in the swamp. He did not know if she survived. He confessed to kidnapping and raping several other women. He said that there were so many victims. He also said he kidnapped and raped another woman and left her tied to a tree in the woods, and he never knew whether she lived or died. Investigators might have followed up on these leads, but no other crimes are officially connected yet to Stephen Timothy Judy. But there are so many unsolved murders, and DNA technology has advanced greatly. One wonders if any law enforcement agency has a sample of Stephen Judy's DNA. Evidence from crimes decades ago may not still exist, but it's interesting to ponder. Stephen Timothy Judy was buried, and he can be exhumed, and DNA profile can be created. He also had biological siblings. Crimes that were considered unsolvable just a few years ago are being solved every day now. Terry Lee Chasteen and her 3 little children deserve to live their lives in peace. What would their futures have held if those futures had not been stolen from them? Rest in peace, Terry Lee Chasteen, and your dear children. Rest in peace. You did the best you could. Rest in peace, Misty Ann, and Stephen Michael, and Mark Lewis.